If you set up camera equipment the way you set up motorcycles, I would be very afraid. That was not tightened down at all. It was just totally
This
loose.
is so tight. I tried to take a drink out of it. The cap was
No,
so
your
on.
camera equipment. Your camera equipment was as tight as the bolts on my Sportster. Remember when that bolt on my Sportster was about to fall out?
Yes, I do remember that.
The one really important bolt where it's like, if that one falls out, the whole
Engine
motorcycle...
mount?
Yeah, the engine mount, then it's like... Ooh.
There's one engine mount. There's several.
Okay, good.
So the camera being loose, I don't know if you've seen where you have to tighten it. I think you did, because I saw you tightening it.
I did tighten it.
It's underneath the desk.
Yes.
And things that happen underneath the desk is not my domain.
You know what?
It's like I live up here.
I understand.
Is Ellie in the chat? She gets it.
No, I understand because, like, the other day, a tall person walked through my house and made a comment on the cobwebs on my ceiling. And I was like, the fuck? I've never looked there. It's 5 feet tall. Like, I'm not looking up in the corner.
Yeah, Ellie's here. She's speaking up. Yeah.
Yeah, so...
Ellie would notice the cobwebs. Under the desk is also not Ellie's domain. That is not where... That's the domain of dwarves live there.
I wonder...
creatures that
there should
slither.
Be a cleaning service of, like, women who are really tall and really small, and they know all the places to look in your house.
This sounds like a service that I provide, but they don't clean. So we got Skittles McDiddles in the chat. Shouting out Cindy, of course, Blissful Ellie, my man Loose Juice, who's always doing the most. Loose Juice is our unofficial moderator.
Okay.
You remember Loose Juice, right?
Yes, I do.
Tall, nerdy, awkward.
Caesar.
Yeah.
No, he's not nerdy. He came to Ohio, if I'm correct. He was
Yeah,
one of the ones-
everyone who
Yeah,
goes
yeah.
to Ohio is nerdy.
He
You
smells
can't tell me not-
smells like chicken soup.
What the heck?
You know, Loose Juice.
I do know what you're talking about. But it doesn't
Yeah,
feel like
yeah.
chicken
Yeah.
The soup guy.
Justin, you know?
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Yes, I love him to death.
Yeah. He's also 6'5".
What?
He's a big youngin.
You know why I
Because men are supposed to be tall, so you don't notice when they are.
you know why I like Loose Juice?
Why?
Because he was the first person to get into his costume at the camp out. And I was like, fuck yeah. There's always
He was
got to
into
be
it.
one.
Yeah.
And
There's
his
always
also
got to be a first one
his,
on the dance floor. And
his
shit.
costume didn't have legs.
What do you mean his costume doesn't have legs?
It was a toga. It was just loose under there.
You think so?
I didn't check.
Let's just say we don't want to know.
Yeah,
I do.
but you know, he did. He did drop his phone.
I feel like that's like a pretty normal thing for the opposite gender to wonder. Is like, I wonder if you're wearing panties.
No, you don't smell like chicken soup. That was a joke.
He's like, I smell like chicken soup. That's funny.
He was wearing shorts underneath, but they're real short. So real quick, just to not to jump right from a joke to something serious, but my man Mad Yankee has descended from the mountains, and I just wanted to shout him out real quick. Not only is the Mad Yankee a great dude, but he says right now, and like everyone,
Did he leave his enclosure?
Matt, he's a weird dude, and I love that about him. But it's something serious. So he goes, if you can pour one out for my mother's cousin Tom. He passed on to the great beyond this morning, one of the hardest working old Maine salts I ever knew. And so here's to Tom. I'll have a drink. Shay will smoke. Cindy, do you want some wine?
Nope, I've got green tea.
Okay.
I'm good.
What's a Maine salt?
A mariner. So he makes his living on the water. So if you make your living on the water in Maine, you're a hard bastard.
Why?
Because it's very rough. People
Hard
die.
work.
It's hard work. So when you say assault, he's like just a dude who's a grizzled old dude who works on a boat.
Maine salt.
If you make your living on the coast, on that coast, like up north, you're a hard dude. It's a hard way to make a living.
So if you make your living on the West Coast, are you a little bitch?
Mm-mm.
No?
Also very hard.
Also very hard. Got it. Just making sure, because you were like, if you make your money on that coast,
Yeah.
it just made it sound like maybe the West Coast.
If you make your living in Tampa Bay in the Gulf of Mexico as a charter captain, you're like, cheeseburger in paradise, dude. Life is good. Smoking Thai sticks, hanging out with the ladies, take them out fishing. That's how people on boats here make their living.
Yeah.
Right? If you know, if someone here goes like, oh, what do? You're like, I work on the water. You're like, you smoke.
Oh, no,
You know
it's
what I
like
mean?
you party.
You party, dude. You party. You have fun. If you live in Maine and you're like, what do you do for a living? They're like, a lobster. You're like, oh, you're tough.
That's what do you do in Maine? Lobster.
Lobster. They go lobster.
Is that
it's a tough job.
Lobster is a job?
Yeah, they get lobsters. And other stuff. They go, fishing for all sorts of things. Halibut and shrimp.
Any of those
and
ones that work on the fishing boats and stuff. That's
So
hard
out of
work.
all the places Josh and I have been in the United States, like every single corner except that one.
Except for Maine. Yeah, I want to go there.
We've never been
I
in
would
the
like to be there,
Northeast
too.
ever,
Yeah.
so I have no idea what it's like out there.
We're also
so I've
huge
never
Stephen
heard
King fans, so it's
Maine
like...
salt before,
Yeah.
and now I will be doing a whole deep dive based off of Tom, was it?
Tom, yeah.
Yeah.
So going up on the coast up there, Ellie, we need to get Ellie out on a boat too. Ellie's a very kind soul, but she does want to go fishing.
She wants to lobster?
I think just fishing here. Lobstering's pretty tough.
I want to
Okay.
go lobstering. I want to go to the Keys and do
That's
that.
that lobstering.
Is it-
That's
Yeah,
different.
that's a part. That's a
Yeah,
cheeseburger in
that's a fun
paradise.
part.
Yeah. It's not like
I
Maine
still wanna
lobstering.
do
Yeah.
it,
So
Yeah.
is that really what it's called, lobstering? So it's like
Yeah.
that's
Well,
the
when you
verb?
hunt, it's called hunting.
Yeah, but that's not the same as like.
As
I
what?
guess yeah. I guess if you fish,
It's
you're
called
getting
fishing.
fish or fishing.
Yeah. If you're getting lobster, you're lobstering. Checkmate, liberal.
I need to think about some things right now. So could you go shrimping?
That's what they call it.
No, they call it shrimping.
They call it shrimping. Yeah.
So is it? What about?
You trying to think of another thing that you do where you get an animal?
What is it? Say another one.
Some of them aren't that. Some of them have a completely different name.
Chat.
I think when you get truffles, it's not called truffling.
What about hunting pigs?
That's just called hunting.
That's just called.
You don't call it pigging.
Yeah, no.
Anyway, yeah, crabbing, getting crabs, it's called crabbing. I don't know. Back when they were picking out names for that stuff, maybe there just wasn't a lot of names. They were just like, what's that called? I don't know. Put an ing on the end. That's what all the kids from Yale are doing.
Probably because they weren't that smart. Not everybody was educated back then.
Sean
It
Innes,
wasn't like a universal thing.
whaling.
No, that one's bad because whales are cute and smart, right?
I think that...
And there's not that many. That's the reason.
When people get upset about, they're like, oh, we only care about you. We kill all sorts of stuff. We hunt all sorts of things. Well, you just think that this is different because it's cute and smart. And I'm like, yeah, it is, dude. I mean, that's called natural selection. If it's cute and smart, I would rather not eat it. I would rather eat a dumb animal. It's true. I don't feel bad about that. People are like, you should feel like, they're all the same. They're not. They're not at
fair
all.
Because I have made my way in life by being cute and dumb, and so has Bilbo.
Yeah, dude. I'm just like, that's fine, man. Eat dumb animals. Feel better. Anyway, so moving on. Journey of Jerry's in the chat. He's coming to the camp out. He missed the last camp out, which is such a bummer. My man Gator Saw is in the chat. He's been in the chat a lot. He doesn't even ride a motorcycle. He works on boats for a living.
Yeah, you don't have to ride a motorcycle.
And he messes around on an airboat, which we've talked about in the past, and this will eventually happen, I'm sure. Excuse me, about stocking the lakes, the retention ponds, the lakes at Forgotten Angels,
Yes.
the ponds, stocking the ponds at Forgotten Angels with fish. So, like filling them full of bass, which I think would be very cool. And then allowing people to fish there, but using barbless hooks.
We found a place too, because they were saying it's only out of Florida that you can find the place to stock them.
Mm-hmm.
But David and I, when we were traveling, I can't remember where it was exactly, but he has it on his phone. There's a place that was more local that we can actually get the fish to stock.
Yeah, I like it, man. I think it would be really fun. And the barbless hook thing. So you use a barbless hook. So a normal hook it's a hook and then it has a barb, so it doesn't come out. So you can make sure you catch the fish. A barbless hook is just smooth with a point, so you can catch the fish. There's a higher likelihood of the fish shaking it off and getting away. But what happens is it has a much higher likelihood of not getting hurt because it's like a piercing. So it can come, when you pull the hook out, because you're doing catch and release, it just comes right out. So it's just kind of like a more humane way of fishing, because it's like fishing in Forgotten Angels lakes, because they're so small, like literally is the definition of shooting fish in a barrel.
I also
like they're right there. They're small. They're right there. You know they're there. So it's like you can have fun,
but it
but
doesn't rain for a long time. Sometimes the water gets really low. Is it like okay to have the fish in there when it's not?
I guess we'll find out. I mean,
right now the lakes, this last storm that went through, the lakes are really high.
Yeah, I know. I saw that.
Awesome.
Well,
awesome.
It was very flooded. We saw people jet skiing to their houses.
Yeah, it was some serious rain. We've been getting some serious little downpours, so
it was a hurricane.
Good. Yeah, but even this last week, it's been like this.
That's what I'm saying. Last week was a hurricane.
But it's past now, though.
Yeah.
But there's another thing out on the coast, they said.
There's always something.
Yeah, there's always going to be something.
It's Florida. It's hot. It's still the summer.
So, I'll say this. Obviously, we're here for a reason. My man, Loose Juice. There's a few different mods in the chat. Blissful Always a mod. We've got a couple other ones in there, too. If you guys can share the raffle. As you guys know right now, we're giving away, raffling, like obviously you have to get a ticket, but you know, we're giving away a Honda Blackbird, and that's literally for the house that we're sitting in now. Thanks, Juice. So we're literally in the house. That feels kind of weird to say, because we never thought that this house was going to be available. It's something that we've always kind of talked about and like known about. But we never thought, and a lot of people who've come to the camp out are aware of it. It's not something that we thought was going to be available.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people who have been to the camp out over, like, how many times have we done it now? Like 7 or 9? 7.
9?
9? 7 or 9 times that we've done the camp out. Like, there's so many people that have been to this property. So, like, a lot of people already know about it.
Yeah, a lot of people know about this place. So the idea, I don't know if before it became available, if the idea kind of coalesced, because there's been a lot of different ideas for it, but it coalesced into, okay, if we're going to try to get it, right, that is still up in the air. We're trying. When I say the royal we, you know, we're trying. But I'm like, okay, so if we're going to try to get it, we're going to talk to you guys about it and try to get it, like, okay, what are we going to do? So we had to really actually think about, like, what is actually going to happen. And so this is literally the first time I met David and Cindy. This is what was happening to them, but more on that in a second. You guys who know Forgotten Angels know that they help everybody, and they help young men and young women who have aged out of foster care primarily, but you help people in their 20s. You've helped people who've come to the camp out who are grown-ass adults. Well, you know, you help people. You know,
it's I don't
primarily.
People just don't
care.
See. I don't think people see, or maybe just don't understand how many phone calls you're getting every day, or people just showing up to the property being like, hey, I have nowhere else to go. Yeah. Or not even just phone calls from like individuals, but phone calls from like, didn't you say you had somebody like from the state call you? Not Florida, but
from California.
And they tried to send you like 20 kids or something.
56 kids.
56?
56 kids. It's you guys have no idea.
That's why I'm saying.
I have no idea how many kids are out there right now in this situation.
That's what I'm saying. It's like
hundreds
it's
of
not
thousands, I'm sure.
just the people who are at Forgotten Angels. It's so many people.
Yeah, it's
in
not
the
who you
program.
just see. It's we help so many
I can't
that
imagine
are
how
out
many.
there, hundreds in schools, and it's not. Sometimes it's not even they. They're going to come live on the property. Sometimes we help them get set up in their apartments, or we help them get back to the state where they should be, like with family. Like they came down with someone, and then it turned out how they thought it was going to. Like we had one of our young boys, he came down with his mom, and then his mom had mental health issues, and she just left him. And he was one of the ones that we picked up in the woods, and he was working at Taco Bell, living in the woods, and then we brought him to Forgotten Angels, but we got him a ticket and sent him back to his aunt, where he had family members. Like I said, they don't all stay at Forgotten Angels; they just all get the same grace.
Yeah,
like we take care of whoever comes through our door or asks for help. We try and figure out what we can do.
Yeah. It's the real stories would curl your toes. I don't tell a lot of the real stories on the channel. You know that, Cindy. I don't really like there's a couple things I'll throw out there. I'll say something like, young men will come, and it's not kids, it's young men.
Yeah. Young adults.
Young adults, right? The state says they're adults.
Yeah.
They ain't. But,
No.
they'll get young men who've come to them who don't know how to tie their shoes. If you can imagine someone who is 18 years old and nobody's ever taught them how to tie their shoes, and they've been too afraid to ask. Because
how many times have you personally in the chat, how many times have you not known something but you're just too embarrassed to ask? There's so many things.
Yeah.
So many things.
Especially when you're a teenager. And so these kids are just like, anyway, they have nothing. They have no driver's license, no nothing. And a lot of them, like Cindy's story, if you guys don't know, was the story of so many of these. It's something that I've repeated so many times that I feel like probably a lot of people are, no, I don't want to say that about, I don't feel like a lot of people have heard it so many times that it loses its punch a little bit, but I'm not worried about having its punch because I see it. And by the way, I am not a mentor, and I have no interest in being a mentor. I help in other ways. There's lots of ways to help, and mentoring is not always the way. There are people who are good at it. I don't feel like I'm one of them. There are other things I'm good at.
Well, and that's it. Everybody's good at something. And that's what we tell everybody, brings something different to the table. Like some people don't have monetary things that they can give, money or whatever, donated cars. But
it's all move up an inch.
They can come in and actually...
It takes a village, right?
Yeah, it definitely takes a village. But, they come in and teach them something, or, they come and spend time with them. I think sometimes people forget that when
Didn't you have somebody come in and just teach people how to sew?
Yeah,
I did. You had somebody come in and just was like,
one of my boys wants to learn how to, have his own clothing line and stuff. I said, well, let's get you some sewing machines. You sit there and she'll teach you how to sew. So we did.
Yeah.
And that's what he's doing. He's trying to make his own clothing line and his own thing. But you have to start somewhere, and learning how to sew is definitely the so they come from nothing. And what happens a lot is these are young men and women who have been taken out of places that I literally can't even say on YouTube because the stream will get taken down if I talk about some of the places they have come from.
You can't.
But they come from places where you could say something along the lines of you have single-digit age children who have been prostituted by their mothers for drugs, or injected by their mothers with drugs, or have been obviously some of them sexually abused by their fathers, uncles, mothers, even some of them. And you're just like, oh, dude, this must be the worst cases. It's the norm, and maybe not the norm, but it's common, and you don't hear about it because it most of the time, especially with the news, right?
Yeah,
I'm not trying to sound like that, but with the news, they don't report on this stuff. Because what's the solution? The news gives a happy story. They're like, and they got out of it and everything was A-okay. With these kids, it's just like they were horrendously abused by their blood parents and relatives, and then they were shoved into a foster care situation where they were basically treated like a farm animal, where money was milked out of them that was given to bad acting foster care parents by the government, and then on their 18th birthday they were made homeless. Where's the happy ending? There isn't one. Most of them end up on the streets, addicted to drugs, not contributing anything to society, a complete waste of life. And then a lot of them make babies again and continue the cycle.
How many times is a foster child taken out of a really bad situation, and then they're like, okay, well, here's your new foster family, and it's just a new terrible situation that just hasn't been brought to light yet.
Unfortunately, a lot of people, they get into it for the money. You know, they get a check for each child that they house that are younger. And my biggest gripe and the thing that I get so angry about is that they're getting paid. To me, it's like you're getting paid to do a job. And you're supposed to, like, when you have kids, they should be getting their high school diploma, their GED. They should be getting their driver's license. When I'm getting them and they're 18, these milestones should have already happened. They should have already done this. They're getting money for having taken care of them, but they're not doing their job.
Right.
So when I get them,
I want to
find, David and I get, like, they're so far behind the 8 ball, and it's not fair because a lot of them come to us and there's no monetary value with them coming to us. We get no money from anyone. We just absorb them into Forgotten Angels,
which costs a ton of money.
And that's where all of you guys have helped us because, you know, feeding people, you know, all these growing kids and just keeping the electric on. We've had one, you know, our electric was almost $1,700 a month.
It's not that. It's just like, how much does it cost to raise a kid? There's everything. Thank you, Track Life. I appreciate you for the 30 on that, man. And you can win the bikes, though. This is a international raffle, so thank you for that. I appreciate it very much. And any donations tonight will go to Forgotten Angels. But instead of donating, please don't. Instead of doing that, Loose Juice, share the raffle. Just buy a raffle ticket, man. Just do that. Thank you, though, Track Life. You're very much appreciated. I will say that, you know, anybody out there who has kids, I've only read about it. Imagine how much it takes to raise a kid. That's what you're doing. Yeah. So, they're 18, but it's like you're raising them from nothing.
Well, you're starting from all their bad behaviors, all the bad things they've been taught in that short amount of time. We get them, we have to correct all of that behavior and teach them, take them out of that survival mode and put them in thriving mode.
Yeah, and they make mistakes.
Oh,
they get into car accidents. They get arrested. They get into fights. You know, they break bones. They need dental work. In the wall. You know, these are kids, dude, and they're bad. Most of them. That's what I always tell people is like people want. Not you people, but I think that a lot of people have this idea of like, oh, here's this kid that needs help, and in their head they're like a little orphan Annie. Yeah. And I'm like, dude, this is not a cute little girl with curly red hair who can sing. These are some bad attitude having.
They're coming with baggage.
Pizza faced, nappy ass hair, just mean. Does that mean they don't deserve help? They have every right in the world to be mean.
Yeah.
So it's like they're you can't sit there and go like, oh wow, you got a real bad attitude.
So
like,
Chris,
what the hell?
I just posted a link in the chat about this news article about this foster family that got caught using their adopted kids for slave labor, and someone was like, yeah, that's fucking horrible. I'm like, dude, that's just somebody who got caught. Like the neighbor,
person.
The neighbor knew, and only like got authorities involved once a child came to their property asking for water. Like, but they like saw it happening and like just sort of like kept to themselves. Like people knew, and just didn't say anything.
So I didn't know about how bad it was until you guys told me about it, where you say that the problem is, and you see this a lot with social workers, and my sister's a social worker, so I've heard about it from her, is when they see foster kid, they run.
Oh, yeah.
They don't want it. They're like, because it's so much work.
It is a lot of work.
That they're just like, oh, damn, a foster kid. They're just like, I don't know, shove them off here, and they stop doing it because they're like the immense amount of work to take a child from the age of 16 to 18, 0 at that age. If they're like 0, they know how to walk and talk and use a fork. And that's it. To take them to being a productive member of society at that age from 16, you're like, okay, 10 years. You know, who out there is under the age of 30? And who out there who's under the age of 30? And there's going to be some people who are very eager to say, me, I don't ever, nothing from my parents. But who out there is under the age of 30, and maybe when you were under the age of 30, how many times did you ever ask your parents for help? Maybe it's just emotional help. Maybe it's just to talk. Maybe it's financial. Between the ages of 20 and 30. Did you ever do that?
I can't count that.
You know, of course, you.
That's not something I can
either
quantify.
that or you count on it.
I can't.
It's a
quantify.
safety net.
Yeah, I was gonna say
Even
the part
just to talk,
knowing they're there.
I call my
is the
mom.
part that's always comforting, and
Up
knowing you. Have
Up
someone
until
you can
recently, I was calling my mom every day. She didn't answer every day, but I would call her every day, hey, what's up? Can I talk? Can I yap?
Well, and now you get list when we had 26, 27 boys on the property, and they all want to talk all the time.
That's why I don't mentor. I don't like to talk.
Yeah,
I like to talk. I talk, but I'm like,
oh my
when
God.
I'm ready to not talk, I'm ready to not talk.
Yeah, once I lose my yap steam, I just sit there like this.
Well, if you got all these, well, the thing with Cindy, I'm sure sometimes you're ready to not talk.
Oh God, yeah. Sometimes I pull the curtain, and it's first thing in the morning. Don't bug me till I've had coffee, please. I've had a couple of them. I'm like, boy, your lifespan just shortened. Like, I have not had a cup of coffee. I'm just telling you flat out. And I've had, one of my boys, he was supposed to have put gas into his scooter. He had a job interview. Well, he didn't do it. So now in the morning,
I can't tell you how many times that's happened to me, and
but see, that's part of what we try and teach them. You need to be prepared. You have a job interview. So now he's knocking at my door at 7:00 in the morning.
Yeah, can I get a 5?
So I have to get to the gas station. Well, no, he can't even get there. So I have to take him with one of the gas tanks to get gas and then come back. And then his scooter doesn't start. So now I'm taking him to his job interview. And now he's nervous.
Sweaty from kicking the scooter.
Yeah, no coffee still, and he's nervous. So then he says, I'm going to throw up in your truck. And I'm like, oh no, you're not. And so I'm putting the window down, and he's throwing up. He's throwing outside down the side of my truck.
I've done that before too.
And I'm like, oh.
This all sounds like something I've done before.
No. Then we pull over to the Wawa.
Such a good mom.
And I give him a water bottle. I'm like, rinse your mouth. I have gum in my thing. And I rinse off the side of my truck with the water bottle. And he goes, oh, so I don't have to go for my job interview now. And I'm like, and then you'd be wrong.
Well, that's what you got to be. You got to be hard, dude, with these kids.
Yeah. I'm like, and he thought he was getting away with not going. I'm like, yeah, no, that's not happening. Put the peppermint in your mouth. We're still going. And he got the job, but he would have quit. Like, hands down, he would have quit. And that's just one.
That's a good story. There are good stories. There are bad stories. There are funny stories. There are heartbreaking stories. But if you've been to the property and you've seen it, or you've heard us talk about it, or you know what's happening, you know that even though Forgotten Angels helps young men and young women, the focus on the property has been young men. And it's been an amazing thing. And mostly, I think, with the tiny home thing, which has been very cool. Which will continue in other ways going forward. But I think a very cool way to show them a way to own something, to take pride in ownership. And a lot of people don't, I'm not trying to talk bad, but a lot of people don't understand that young men and women who've never had anything, and even though they've not had much, everything they have had has been given to them, they don't understand about pride in ownership. They don't understand what it's like to work for something, even though they have nothing. Like in a lot of people's heads, they would be like, wow, I had to work for everything I had. They should appreciate just getting something. Well, if they've only ever gotten stuff, even if the stuff sucks, they've still only ever gotten stuff. So even if you give them something nice, they don't appreciate it. That's not their fault. They've never been taught any better. Yeah. So you have to make them like, even you're like, oh, I'm going to give you this, but I have to charge you for. And I've seen Dave and Cindy do it so many times. Like, I'm going to, here, yeah, you can have that. You got to pay for it. And not because they're trying to make, obviously they're not trying to make money. Half the time they just put it in a box and give it to them later. But they got to pay for it because they have to understand about pride and ownership.
Yeah, I mean, like,
tiny homes are important for that.
How do you teach someone value?
Like that.
Like that.
Yeah.
Like, how else do you teach someone? Like,
well, it's them learning how to
like
build
value
equity in themselves. Like they finally start, when they get tiny homes or they get something, they start seeing, oh my goodness, I actually own something.
Right. It has.
And
if I got
mine,
yeah.
And I have to pay for it.
And if I fuck it up,
yeah,
it's mine.
It's the same reason why I allow them to have animals on the property. It's teaching them to value something and that it's not a possession. It's something that you have to take care of.
Yeah.
And that you have to love, and that unconditional love that they get from them too that's so important. It is so healing. But like I said, there's so many stories of so many kids and things that have happened. But I think for me, Kira's always been the one that has torn my heart out the most because.
So as I was saying, we talk about young men a lot because that's who they've, for now, coming up on 10 years, have focused on the property. But as, we expand and shift gears and try to do more, when I first met you guys, it was just an incredibly somber day. Yeah. And it was not that, it hadn't happened the day before or anything, but it was just like so soon. I didn't understand at all. I was like,
I think they had just found her body.
So if you guys don't know, Cindy, and you started out helping just everybody, and you started this out of your garage at your house and just helping young kids just with get cell phones and giving them gas cards and just money, here, $20, like whatever, just helping anybody that you could.
The main thing
which
for
is
me
is like, I still see you do that.
Yeah, I do still do that, but
that's what I'm saying. Is
on
like
a bigger level,
even,
but I do.
Yeah, but I know, like, even at that level, I've seen, like, I've literally been there when you're handing somebody literally those items. Yeah. And you're just like, and I was like, who is that? You're like, someone who needed it. I don't know.
But I know that, like, you don't have sons.
No.
You have daughters.
I have 2 daughters.
And so I know that just from getting to know you guys over the years, I know that helping young women who have aged out of the foster care system, because we talk a lot about young men and what it means to be a man and how to become a man and how to be a productive man in society, which is important. But it's there's just as many young women, if not more. I don't really know the statistics.
It's about almost 50-50. The thing is, for us, we started with the men first because Bryce, who was my first young man, he needed some place to go. They had put him in a house in the worst of the worst areas, and he already had. We didn't realize that he had such a bad drug addiction problem at that time. Mm-hmm. But they had him in a drug-infested area, and no one watching, no one helping him. He's getting beat up. So when we started looking for, like, we have to take him out of this environment. The only way he's going to turn around is if we take him out of this area. And that's why we started looking for the properties to house them and not just help them. Like, you have to totally change their way of thinking and put them someplace completely different. Yeah. And for us, it started with boys, but then I started working with more girls too. Like, they lived there, but for me, I ended up with Kira and I ended up with Elizabeth almost the same time. Yeah. And both of them at risk, and they're girls. And now it's even harder because human trafficking is so bad, and there's so many other aspects where these young girls can end up in it. It's scary as all get out.
I think it's a lot. It's very scary for young women. I wouldn't know, obviously, but I can only imagine how scary it is out there. And human trafficking has a face that most people would not imagine that it does. It's happening directly in front of you in ways that you could not possibly imagine. And just the life that I've led and the circles that I run in, I've seen it a lot. And some of, not that I want to talk about it now, but a lot of what I do now has been inspired by that, and as far as empowering people. But so was Kira, she went through the foster care system, or she was at risk?
She was one of my at-risk girls. Her mom was in jail. She dropped out of school to take care of her brothers. And when she had heard about, the program, she had contacted me, and she was trying to get in. She thought she was going to do Job Corps, but she thought that she could go to Job Corps during the day. She didn't realize that she'd have to stay there.
Right.
And so then she's like, I can't do that. She goes, I can't leave my brothers. Nobody's taking care of them. My mom's still in jail. And she goes, I'm just going to have to give up. And I'm like, no, sweetheart, that's not what we're doing. So I used to drive to Bartow every day, which is an hour away.
Yeah.
And then I would take her to Simmons Career Center, which is the school that we work with. And then I would pick her up at the end of the day, and I'd take her back home. Either we would take her to Bartow or I'd take her to Lakeland when she was working, and then she'd get a ride home from work. But we did this for months. And a lot of time in the car with my baby, a lot of time, like all of her dreams, everything that she wanted to do, and, getting her graduated, and the struggles that she would have, like at home, my phone's getting turned off. I'm like, let me pay it, so I have to be able to get a hold of you. So I'd pay her phone bill. And it's not that, she was trying so hard to, like, she's buying her brother's school clothes to make sure that they have what they need, but her needs weren't being met. So when we stepped in, her life got easier somewhat, but not to the extent. She lived with her grandmother, and her grandmother's charging her rent money and making her pay Tico, and she's working at Arby's, for Christ's sake. Like, you can't pay these types of bills working at Arby's.
While also trying to better herself.
Yeah. And going
which
to school
costs
full time.
Money. It doesn't cost, it's not free to better yourself.
No,
you can't just go get a job and especially at Arby's, like, that's not.
Yeah, you're not making a lot of money.
You're treading water.
Yeah.
It costs money to better yourself.
Well, Kira's the first
and
one we donated a car to.
And go to school.
Yeah. Okay.
She's our very first one that we donated a car to.
You guys have donated a lot of cars. We've taken cars as donations. By the way, if anybody out there would like to email Forgotten Angels, if you have a vehicle, hopefully running, but if it can get running.
Running
sometimes
is nice.
Running is nice, but if it's not running, it can get running. We'll figure that out too. A lot of cars get donated by Forgotten Angels.
Yeah, and the day that we gave her that car, oh my goodness, her face, it was just so incredible. Like, I can just see her little face would just light up a room.
It had to be like the most expensive thing at that point that she'd ever owned in her life.
Like,
and it was hers. And now she didn't have to count on. Well, number one, I didn't have to get up at 5 a.m. to go get her every day, and every day I had to fix, like, plan my day around what I'm doing to make sure I could get back to get her. And for her, she was doing, oh my God, she was doing so incredible. Like, she literally had kind of found her way a little bit, as far as working hard to graduate and,
right,
like,
hitting a stride.
Yeah, like what she wanted out of life. And then unfortunately, like I said, if we'd had a place for her to be, then she wouldn't have been in this situation as at this time. And her half-brother asked her to take, he wanted a ride somewhere. And unfortunately, I gave her the car that gave him the ride. But he found out that she had a stimulus check that she hadn't used the money for. And he wanted it, and she didn't give it to him. So he shot her in the head and killed her. And then he put her behind a retention pond. And we knew she was missing. We just didn't know where she ended up. So it took us about a week and a half before we found her body. And I remember I told David, I was like, she's gone. And he's like, don't say that. I said, I feel it. She's gone. I already know. And then it was like the next day that, they found her. And she's just one of many kids that need us. They need all of us. And it's so hard because with her, I feel like I failed her even though I was there. I still feel like I failed her. And
You wouldn't be the person I love if you didn't feel like you failed her. Obviously, everyone's going to say you didn't, but like that's who you are. So
well, and that's why I guess for me this house means so much to me, and why I feel like we have to work so hard to try and get it, because this house is going to be named after Kira. This is going to be a girl's house, one that, so we can save the young girls too. We've saved so many kids and we've saved so many young men, but my heart is still, I still miss my girl. I still, I have so many of them that I work with. She's the one that, unfortunately we didn't save.
this is, and thank you for telling. I hate to make you relive that story again. I really do. I'm sorry. But I think people needed to hear it, and that's the reality of what you guys do and what all of us help with. We help, everyone out there, we all help. But this is the reality of what Cindy and everyone else who does the mentoring work deal with, is that not every story is great and not every story has a happy ending. And a lot of the stories are, we didn't have quite enough to do it. A lot of them end with, we almost made it, but that doesn't mean you give up. That doesn't mean you stop. That only means that should galvanize you to try harder, to reach for more, and to do as much as you can in the time that you have allotted to you in this world. Because it's not even a failure. This is just life. You can't call a life a failure. It's not a failure. You can't call her life a failure. It's not a failure of a life. It's a life that meant something. It's a life that meant something to you. It's a life that's gone on to mean something to, however many people are watching right now, however many people have heard your story. So I think that I'm not just trying to put a good spin on it, but that's the idea behind this house. This is a 9-bedroom house.
In her memory.
In Kira's memory.
Yeah.
And a place where forgotten angels, because for very obvious reasons that I shouldn't have to say, there obviously cannot, for vulnerable young women and vulnerable young men, a co-ed situation is the worst thing you could possibly imagine. It does not work. So this has to be a separate situation. And this is something where they could take young women and not just give them a place to do the same thing, to learn how to be a human being.
And to be safe.
To learn how to be strong, to learn how to say no, to learn how to know their worth. I think that the challenges facing young women, and just don't let me mansplain what it is to be a woman, but knowing your worth, the ability to say no, the wherewithal to know when you're being manipulated. The challenges facing young women are insanely different than the ones facing young men. It's not this. It cannot be the same challenges. It's many are the same, and so many are different, especially in the world, the predatory world that we live in now.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And for everyone that doesn't know Tiger, well, you do know Tiger, but that was Kira's baby. And that's why he's a spoiled little brat, and that's why he runs the property. Hands down, he gets everything he wants. He's been through enough.
He's an asshole.
He's a stank. I can't. I'm sorry, but he is. He's a spoiled brat. But
so that's where we're at. That's what we're trying to do here. I think it means something. That's not something that before 2 days ago that we thought was possible. But now we have the opportunity. There's still a lot up in the air, but everybody who's donated a single dollar to Forgotten Angels has done a lot towards making that a reality.
Absolutely.
I think, your love for her and the memory will live on through literally every action that you do, and influences all of those things.
Well, and I think for me, there's so many Kiras out there. That's the worst part, is there are so many young girls like Kira out there. And I mean, we need to make a safe place for them too. Like we have for the boys, they need to have a safe place to be, that we can help them, and have a house mom in the house that, guides them and make sure that like you said, they know their worth and they're making smart choices. And, you know, teaching them how to cook, teaching them how to do all the things that a mom would teach.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of them have no idea how to do these things.
Like, almost like a sponsor.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
we will never have a Forgotten Angels that doesn't have adults living on the property with them, even though they're considered adults. They're not adults yet, and they need to be guided to make good choices.
I just now feel like I'm mentally becoming an adult, and I'm 29 years old.
Yeah, it takes a while, and especially when you suffered so much trauma, your growth is just stagnant from like where the trauma starts. So it's harder, you know, you're trying to catch them up to, you know, where they should be according to their age. But, you know, I have some of the kids that we worked with, they come through and they're like 13 years old. They're 18, but I promise you, it's like they're 13. So it takes a lot. It takes a lot to, you know, move them forward. And,
well, it's just, there's so much, think of all the emotional development that usually happens in
all the delays.
In those like really formative years. You know, they have to experience, you know, like usually, not, I wouldn't say usually, but like it is very common for people to stay at the mental state that they experienced the most trauma.
Yeah. And they're stagnant at that state and getting them through it.
Yeah.
It's hard to bring them forward and to bring them out of it, but that's when I say to take them out of like their surviving, you know, mode and put them in a thriving mode. Why it's so important, so that they literally can start dreaming and, you know, start thinking. I can't tell you how many of my kids I've asked them, I'm like, what are your dreams? Like, what do you want to do? Like, what are your hobbies? And
I think that like really what the most important thing that you do for like young people is give them a safety net to do things like
anything like
you give them the opportunity to fail.
Yeah. Oh, they fail a lot there, but most kids do. Most young adults do, and that's part of it. You don't even know how to do half the stuff, especially if you're behind the 8 ball like most of them are.
Yeah, but most people don't even have an opportunity to invest in those parts of themselves, and learn things like how to sew, because they're living in survival mode, and sewing is not something that they can think about.
No.
You know?
It's hard for a lot of people. I think especially hard for me, being someone who has, I mean, I guess like maybe someone could argue it, but I've really never failed at anything. I've always kind of excelled at everything I've done. Fastest, strongest, smartest.
I really wish he wasn't like wrong, because he is very right about this statement, and it's really frustrating. But I think you always just like, you don't play games that you're gonna lose. You know, you always do things that you're good at.
I've failed before, but usually upwards.
Yeah. Well, I feel like you fail the way that the United States government fails, and that the way that they just move the goalpost.
Yeah,
you know?
New game. But I live in a world where I've been allowed to make that happen. Like, I'm just, jokes aside, but I can't not make the joke. It's this is where we're at. Thank you to everybody who is helping. There also is a prize. There's the Blackbird.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
there's that too.
There is that.
Yeah,
I don't want to ever
feel
forget
bad.
that, but it's just like, it's fine. It's a bike. There's many. I mean, feel a little bad.
I do feel bad, because David literally has the miniature of this bike, and he's had this miniature of this bike sitting above the desk for a long time. Like, he truly has. And so the fact that he's put this up to raffle it, that just tells you, like, he's been looking for this for a long time, but he put it up because he knows how much this means, you know, to Forgotten Angels and to me, and, you know, to him.
But what is a bike?
Hmm?
Compared to all of this, what's a bike? Nothing.
It's not.
It's not.
Like I said, it's just sometimes the sacrifices continue, and, you know, I love him for it. Like,
so many people here have sacrificed, and David is sacrificing a bike. He sacrificed a lot for Forgotten Angels. You've sacrificed even more. I've sacrificed things, so has Shay.
Yeah.
Not as much as some people in the audience, man. We have some people. The first person that always, not always, but the first person that comes to mind is Flip the Blue Mule.
Yeah.
Who's donated thousands upon thousands
He
of dollars.
absolutely has.
There's so many people here. Buck Brown.
Yeah, Buck he's a
donates
force to
things
be
all the
reckoned
time.
with too.
Journey of Jerry, Loose
Jerry.
Juice.
There's so many people who
know.
aren't.
Dry Heat Doug,
Yeah.
you know.
Where it's like, hey man, I am going to not do something this week because I want to help somebody else do something.
And we are making a difference. Like we truly, and that's the part that keeps us going. Like when you see
like,
the kids turning around, like Junior, if you'd have met Junior.
Like I said earlier, so
Yeah.
just a callback to something I said earlier was like, I can't tell you how many times that I've been at your house and somebody's leaving and they just left with like gift cards and money for their phone bill and like some food and groceries and like makeup wipes and necessities and things, and it's like all those things cost money and those are what your donations go to.
So
as like that $25 was a like gift card for somebody to get to work that week.
real quick, I just want to reiterate what Loose Juice just said. Please, and he has said the truth. We say this all the time. Please only donate if you can afford that.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
if you are on so ultimately there's actually 2 bikes being given away, but ultimately one person will win the bike. So one person will win the bike no matter how many raffle tickets get bought. And I'm not trying to make people not buy them, but if you have to think about it as you might get a chance at the bike, awesome. Think about it like that. But don't do it if you don't have the wherewithal and the funds to do so. If you're in a bad situation,
Don't put yourself at risk.
dude,
to help
they're
another.
helping.
Don't do it.
Forgotten Angels is helping people at risk. Don't put yourself. You're hurting the problem, not helping the problem. If you also put yourself at risk, I would say it like this: if right now you have less than $500 in your checking account, like where you spend money, I'm talking about your savings account. If you have less than $500 in your checking account, don't buy a ticket. Don't do it.
You need to make sure you have your groceries,
Yes.
your bills paid, and like I said, I mean, it's great when people are like, well, I'm not going to eat out and I'm going to buy a raffle ticket.
I'm not gonna buy
That's
my
different.
Fortnite skin.
That's
this week.
different.
Yeah, that's
right.
different.
If you have extra money, if you do extra things, don't let this be the only extra thing you do. If you go like, okay, this week I was going to spend $25 on beer this night, or I was going to go out and buy a bottle of liquor, or I was going to go out and get McDonald's this day. And unfortunately now McDonald's for 2 these days is $25.
It's $25.
But so if you were going to do that and you had the money for that, and if you don't do that, and instead you go like, you know what, I'm buying a Lunchable today. Hopefully something better than Lunchable. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Lunchables are like $5 now.
If you
Just so you
do
know.
that instead, and then use the $25. But if you just don't hurt yourself, because I worry about that constantly. Because obviously we give away bikes, we give away trips to Florida, we give away a lot of cool stuff, but I have a moral issue. We talk about this all the time.
Yeah,
I have a moral quandary where I'm just like, how cool can I make this sound?
Yeah.
Because I'm like, obviously I do want people to donate, but I don't want to, you know what I'm saying? I don't want to
we
make,
just don't want
you know.
We love that you love Forgotten Angels and that you want to support us and you want to support the kids. And it is very important. But don't put yourself in that category, even if you're older, at risk. That's all we ask. That's all we're saying is that, we love everybody that supports us and we know that, everyone works hard for what they have. And we're all making a difference. We're all doing this together. We might be on the ground, the grunts on the ground doing the work, but ultimately we couldn't do it without you. But with that being said, don't put yourself in a position where now we're going to have to help you.
Yes. I think that Warlock 7447 put it great. He put off seeing Deadpool Wolverine.
Yeah.
That's a great Go see it eventually. I hope you go see it next week. But the fact that you're like, I was going to see it this week, and instead of going to the movies, I bought a $25 raffle ticket. That's awesome. Yeah. Good on you, dude. We love you. We care about you. Thank you. That's an awesome sacrifice of something that would have been very enjoyable for you. That is 2 hours of enjoyment and fun and laughing that you gave up. So 2 hours of an awesome time. You would have laughed, been in a comfortable AC, sat in a comfortable chair, had a delicious snack, and you would have laughed your ass off for I haven't seen it. Maybe I don't know if it's fun or not.
I don't know.
But like, hopefully you would have laughed your ass off.
Wolverine Logan is a very tragic character.
I heard so he brought the funny for the Deadpool and Wolverine movie. So
is it Hugh Jackman?
Yeah. So he thank you. That's awesome. That is a great sacrifice. You sacrificed 2 hours of having a great time to help somebody else.
Looking at Hugh Jackman.
You know, Scott Plays sacrifice putting hot dogs in his mac and cheese. Also a great time.
However you do it.
Our man Joey's in the chat, dude. Good man. Dude, I put so many of Joey's stickers and
I keep them up here with the freebies, dude.
Yeah, so I put Joey's stickers in overseas packages. So anytime I always send them overseas. One of them went to Brunei.
Mm-hmm. I have to take it.
How many times you heard the salt? Who do you think you are? The Sultan of Brunei?
Oh, jeez.
Dude, right? Isn't
Yeah.
that old saying? We sent a package to Brunei.
That's awesome.
And one of Joey's stickers.
That's great.
Sometimes I'll include a blockhead sticker in some orders too. I have like 2 left.
Also, we need to get in contact with P. Carbo. He got a misprint of a space trucking shirt.
Oh, bummer.
Yeah. Anyway, just aside. So, I don't know, man. If you have,
I'm gonna write that on my desk. So
yeah, if you have some extra money, you can buy a ticket. Someone's going to win the bike, and it's someone who's bought a ticket in a 48-hour period. We'll be pulling the ticket. We'll do another live stream tomorrow. We'll put the ticket at 9 p.m. I'm sure Cindy, you can be here as well tomorrow.
Yeah, tomorrow.
David's on a long trip right now, so he's not going to be here. But we'll make Cindy call instead. Dave's channel says you're the most holy of all women.
I'm not sure about that.
Listen,
I'll take it.
We're all born sinners.
I will say I give everyone grace. If that's being holy, everyone gets the same grace, no matter how they come in or how they leave. They all get the same grace.
I always tell people anytime they say something, I say, let he who is without sin cast the first stone. That's because I've done all the sins.
You have to beware the sins of man and indulge the sins of women.
There you go.
So yeah, we're gonna give away the bike. Somebody's getting an awesome bike. It's got 23,000 miles on it.
What time are we doing that tomorrow?
9 p.m.
No, like what time are we gonna start live streaming? I know. I'm sorry. I'm asking you to schedule something.
All day. We'll start at noon.
Okay.
I don't know.
7, Streamathon?
6.
Start at 6.
4.5. I don't know. Don't look at me like that.
4.5. All right. Well, guys, look out for like the stream notification. I'll set it. Like, I'll set a room right after we end this one.
No, don't set it now.
Why? Why not?
Set it tomorrow morning.
Oh, Buck, yes, I am an awesome barber. His mohawk that I had to give him when all the truckers, when we did that little live stream thing with them and they were all shaving their beards and stuff off, he had me shave his head. I'm like, I've never cut anybody's hair, but he got a mohawk.
We could do a call in. We have a Brapstar phone now. Nobody has a number.
Oh my god, you're right.
But we have one.
Oh my god, hand me the Brapstar phone. I'm gonna set it up.
Well,
That's so exciting. Well, I mean for like the live stream tomorrow.
Oh.
I forgot about this.
Oh, man. Amanda's in the chat.
Which one?
Joe's Manda.
Oh, howdy.
Well, we love you guys. It's always good hanging out. I'm sorry that, I don't know, we're always up and down. It's all over the place. Ultimately, there is a lot of sad things in the world. There's a lot of horrible things that happen, but you can let them do horrible things to you. You can let them get you down. You can let them make you stop working or make you think that there's no hope, or you can let it galvanize you
Or
and
you
make you stronger.
can, you know, thrive and be fueled off of spite. That's what I do.
I think the main thing is that this type of work is not for the weak-hearted, because there's a lot of you kids come in with trauma. We've lost more than Kira, too. Kira was the hardest one for me because her and I were very, very close, and I spent hours and hours in the car with her. But, you know, we had one of our young boys that unfortunately he came to our place, and I got him to a really good place so his uncle could take him. And I was so happy that, you know, a family member was stepping up, but he had epilepsy and he had different things, but he was doing well in school now. He had his medication. So he went to live with his uncle, and then he started not doing as well there. And the uncle started having heart problems. So they wanted to send him back to me, but we had COVID on the property, so I couldn't take anybody. So they put him in the type of place that we want to shut down, like hands down want to shut down. It's a place where there was no oversight, no one there checking, no one, like there was like, I don't know, 6 boys in this house and there was nobody there to see what they were doing. They had a camera up. Well, my young boy, unfortunately, somehow got a hold of alcohol. When you have epilepsy, you are not supposed to be drinking. He went into, you know, he was in his room drinking. He was supposed to be on a CPAP machine at night because that's when he had most of his seizures. And if he didn't, there were trouble. Well, he passed away and he was dead for 2 days before they found him. And
I can't imagine.
That's the type of places that I want shut down. Like, you have to have someone, like I can tell you where my boys are, what they're doing. I can tell you when they're coming in, or if they're ordering pizza. Like, I pretty much know the routines. Like, if someone's not doing something, we go and check on them. And for him to be dead for 2 days before they came to even like look for him, and it happened to be a caseworker, it's because it was a visit, and they had to find him in the room like that. And then they called me to let me know that because he was supposed to be coming back to our property, that he had passed away. And I'm just like, it was. And they're like, we're so sorry.
Say his name, Cindy. I don't want to like leave this without names and personalities and
Kevin.
Say some things that he liked, because I'm like, this is a story about somebody who don't know. You know so much about this person.
Kevin was, oh my goodness, he was a big youngin'. Like, he was probably 6'2", and he wanted to become a gourmet chef. That was his goal.
He's a big boy.
And so we were having, like, on the property, we would have cook-offs to see who could cook better, and then we would have to eat it.
Oh no!
Yeah, sometimes it's good, sometimes it wasn't. But he was a bright light, and I was so happy that I'd gotten him to the place where his uncle would take him in, and he was so excited. You know, like, I'm going to live with my family. It's not that he didn't love living with us, but I still think if you have someone who steps up to the plate and they're going to be good, and he could come back and visit. But then for it to go from there to him going somewhere that no one really cared what happened to him, for him to be placed there, and for them to, like, literally, he's gone for 2 days and no one in the house even knew that he was in his room dead, or that he was struggling and needed help. I'm like, what? This
go from being on Forgotten Angels and laughing.
Yeah, to this, like,
and
doing cook-offs and
having a good time to that.
To being in a place where they don't care about you. Like, he was a check for them, and that was it. And that's the harsh reality of what we do. A lot of people do things for money, and, you know, I had gotten him to a place where he actually was thriving. He was doing so well. That's how he could go and live with his uncle. When he came to me, he wasn't doing that well. And then to have that happen to him, like, again, like when these things happen, I take that very personal, because I feel like if he had been with us, I could have saved him. If he'd have been with us, this wouldn't have happened. And for me, I feel like that with all the kids, like, you know, if you, like, you guys see some of the boys come through, you know, they're at the campouts and stuff. But we hadn't started the campouts when we first got the boys. Let's just put it that way.
That's for sure.
And we had 26, sometimes 27 boys living on the property. And when I tell you we were twitching, like, that's an understatement. Because, you know, we have, you know, Brandon, he's autistic, traumatic brain injury. So he's at my door like every 30 minutes, like knocking, because he wants attention. Tim, now, he's so incredible, but when he first landed on the property, he was definitely deprived of attention. He wasn't secure in himself. He was, all of these things we had to work on and teach him how to be a young man. And now he's incredible. You guys see him at the campouts. He is such a sweetheart. He's come so far. If you had met him day one, I was like, what the Sam Hill have I done? Like, literally. But fast forward to all the love, all of the attention, and just the guidance, and they're thriving. Like, all of the kids thrive when you do that with them. And that's, to me, the most important part for all of us and for all of you. Like, when you show up and you show them attention, they love that. And that's part of them knowing that the community cares about them. And it's so important. I don't even know if you guys realize how important that is for these boys and for the girls, whoever that's out there that we're working with.
You can't ignore the forest for the trees. Yeah. You can't ignore the trees for the forest. You know, you gotta save who you can. Yeah. And you got to do what you can with the time that you have and the ability that you have to do it. What you guys see here with the amount of money that comes through, and some people might count up the amount of money that's come through in donations for Forgotten Angels over the years and go like, wow, you could have changed the world with that. And some people who actually know what it takes would say that it's nothing.
And we are changing nothing. The world, but it's not nothing. An expensive world out there.
But it's thank you for everyone who's helping, and this is affecting real lives, you know.
Moto Mortician says Tim was the first person I met when I pulled into the property. I'm sorry.
So I'll let you guys know. So Moto Mortician has bought the first raffle ticket for not every single raffle, because he's been a little late a couple times. Yeah, but almost every single raffle.
I'm just like, I'm remembering when I first met Tim in like 2020. He was pretty weird. I'm gonna be honest, Tim, if you're watching this, I'm sorry, but like
he's come such a long ways, and Tim has had his trials.
I know.
Kicked him off the property.
I know.
I made him leave for a few months because he said some not very nice things to me, and I was like, well, gotta go. And then he said it to David too.
I know.
Like, it was so bad, and now it's so funny because you fast forward, like, we taught him his lesson, and then when things got rough where he was at, there was a chance he was going to end up in jail.
He had a safety net.
Yeah, and he's like, this is what's going on. And I was like, okay, are you ready to come home now?
Sometimes you got to come home to mom.
Yeah, are you ready to come home? And he's like, I can come back. I'm like, of course you can come back. Fast forward to Tim now. Like,
I was
so
looking great.
Through all my cards and stuff I've gotten from Tim, and he's wrote on one, "You're my favorite person." And from calling me nasty names to I'm his favorite person, we've made strides.
That's really sweet.
Yeah. No, he's bought me like little necklaces from Walmart,
Aww.
You know, that have mom on them and stuff. He is a sweetheart. He has a really, really good heart. These kids do. It's just they're a diamond in the rough. You have to shine them pretty hard to bring some of that stuff out. And what I was saying, even with Junior, if you had met Junior when he first came to he walked onto the property. Like, literally walked onto the property. Oh,
man, he still had a bad attitude when I got there.
Oh, my God, he was so bad. And he talked so loud. Like, I used to tell him, I said, I'm not deaf, you know, but I will be by the time we're done with this conversation. Because he would talk so loud because he wanted to be heard. And it's so funny, he called me today, and I was laughing. He's like, Ma, what are you doing?
That's a really good impression of him.
Yeah, he
speaks so confidently.
Sweet.
I think that Junior, out of everyone who's ever been on the property, Junior's definitely my fucking boy.
Yeah,
I would never tell him that. He's doing fine. He doesn't need to hear that from me. But he's my fave, dude. And I hope that boot camp taught him a little humility.
Well, he has. I don't know if boot camp will teach him humility. I'm sorry, but he's, like I said, he's a special kid.
Is he Army?
He'll be going in the Army. He hasn't completed everything. They're still we had to jump through hoops because he came to us with a record. Mm-hmm. So we had to clean up some stuff for him.
A record? Usually they send those to the Marines.
Yeah.
I've learned recently about all the different sections of the Army and what they all think, or of the military and what they all think about each other.
Yeah.
Badly.
They all think very badly of each other.
Well, I was raised by a Marine, so I have a preference.
Well, the Marines are, I
Taught me
thought,
how to
all
eat
the
crayons,
people who aren't very smart, right? They're like the people eating crayons.
So the Marines thing, and we learned this the other day, is the Marines got their attitude. What's the word I'm looking for? Their reputation for being idiots, because in World War II, which is my grandfather who raised me, became a Marine. The Marines basically just took all the leftovers. So it's like everyone, they were just like, you guys are literally...
I'm coming in for the scraps!
Yeah, they're just
geez.
you are literally too stupid to be here. And in World War II, they take anybody. And the Marines were like, well, we'll take... And they just made their training way harder. And so, there you go. So you had to be pretty fucking tough to make it through it. And so they learned them something. That sounds like... And I'm nothing against the Army or any other branch of the military, but but like, I don't know, the Forgotten Angels programs, it seems like it has more in common with the Marines. Those are just like, oh dude, are you fucked up? Are you stupid? Are you mean? You can come here, we'll take care of you. You better be ready to work.
Hey, you gotta put in the work.
Honestly,
too.
that's how I like all men. Like, Ken lives to serve Barbie, and I think men should take notes.
Yeah, that would be nice, wouldn't it?
Joe the Jedi's got it right. He goes, they didn't take the idiots, they were tactically acquired.
That's a nice way of
Shay
putting
just
it.
learned about, Shay is just learning now about, Shay has become a patriot. In the past week. She already was really, but
I am so much more like America first than I was a week ago. Let me tell you.
She didn't know about World War II, which is okay. Cut her some slack.
It's like, no, I knew about World War II. I'm not like totally unaware of
You had history class.
Yeah, I went to history class. I passed. But I was like, I wasn't in there being like, what happened on this tiny little island outside of Papua New Guinea, and why did we need it? Why was it important? Why the fuck do we still own that shit?
I know. There's a lot.
Yeah, she's been going on a deep dive of American history. And so there's two ways you can go. If you go on a deep dive of American history, you can either go on one path, which is like, I hate America now, or you can go on the correct one, which is America's the best and all the other countries aren't quite as good.
So the duality of womanhood is that I'm on both paths. You know? Is like, I both simultaneously love men, but hate them. I'm like that with America, too.
Yeah, there's certain parts of it, especially right now.
You know, but yeah, Loose Juice, I can hang with the boys now. I'm learning so much about...
Is that what you have to do to hang with the boys?
Yeah, you got to learn about trains. You got to learn about planes. You got to learn about maritime law and traffic. You got to learn about the big boats, the small boats. You got to learn about all the trucks that they used, and you got to learn about rifles. And then you can hang with the boys.
The boys are like, Some of them are like, I got to learn all that too?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's funny.
I'm the most interested in planes right now. I'm doing a deep dive on a bunch of nose art from World War II.
Oh, those planes were beautiful. Some of
Pretty
that was really cool.
So
Yeah.
I found out that the more artistic the plane, like the more vulgar they would do it, it was because they weren't being checked on as often because they were going deep into like the jungle and like they didn't have to go, report back. So their nose art would be like
A little bit.
like
A little more sketchy.
really scandalous. So I really like that, and I want to now go to so many aircraft graveyards and look at art and see all the planes, and I want to see all the trains, and I want to see all the boats.
You've got your work cut out for you now.
I know, there's so many. Do you know that they took a bunch of the planes and we just put them on the bottom of the ocean because we just made too many?
No, that's
And we just couldn't store them all, so we're just like, I guess we'll store them in the ocean.
That's crazy.
Dude, also, I wish they'd bring American science back. So,
Right?
back in the...
It's,
I remember as a kid... So, you don't... I'm not trying to interrupt you.
I'm not there yet. Don't spoil it.
No,
Just
no,
like
I'm not gonna spoil
I'm not
it.
in the Ronald Reagan era yet. I'm still in the 1940s, and I swear to God, if you guys spoil the 80s for me, I'm gonna be fucking pissed.
Reagan fucked up a lot of science shit, but he was really into space. You know that already. Star Wars. So, but like, Cindy, you'll remember this because I'm closer to your age than to Shay's age. Okay. So you remember the 80s, you remember the 90s, and you remember how it was just like science. Yeah. It was like large hadron colliders and physics, and America was like, dude, we're the best scientists that ever existed, dude. We're the best, dude. We're
best of the best.
Here's
of
the new
everything.
the new proton, and here's the new quark, and I was just like, damn, dude, that was so cool. We need to get back to that. I like that a lot, dude.
Yeah.
And we shared too, which I thought was pretty generous of America because we don't have to, being that we're the best country that ever existed. Except for all New Zealand, ADHD, engineering madness.
Bro.
Thanks, bud. We appreciate you, man. You can actually buy a raffle ticket. So thank you, ADHD, engineering madness. Longtime viewer of the channel, amazing dude. He would love to be here. So he watches every video.
I want
every live
to
stream.
be there.
It's the morning there. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Julia.
Good morning.
But he watches every day. If you live in
Wait,
another
who's
country,
Julia?
that's a your mom's house joke.
From what?
YMH, it's a mom jeans joke.
Yeah. But
good
like,
morning, Julia.
Is it from like a TikTok they watched or something?
Yes, of a guy who left a weird voicemail to a girl that he saw in the parking lot of a gym.
Oh, okay. Oh,
Yeah.
I do remember that episode now. Sorry.
We got people in New Zealand and Australia. We could go to Australia right now, or like Southeast Asia, anywhere in that, because Australia is in Southeast Asia, and we would freaking have people to party with. They're more America than Americans.
Let me tell you, I am learning so much about Southeast Asia right now.
Dude, they rock down there, and it's not just Australia. So it's like everybody from Southeast Asia is on the same page. It doesn't matter what color you are. I love that equality. So it's like Australia,
Yeah, we stand.
fast cars, fast motorcycles,
Yep.
rock and roll. Thailand, fast cars, fast motorcycles, rock and roll. Dude, they're just like all on the same page. They're like, does it go fast? Is it loud? I love it. I feel like I would thrive in Thailand.
In that environment, yeah.
Yeah, dude, I feel like I could live in Thailand very easily. And not just because people are like, I want to go to Thailand because, party, girls. I'm like, no, dude, they will race anything.
Well, that's just because that's like
Those
you
dudes
said. That's
go
just
fast.
because of where it is in the world. It's like that's Australia's Mexico, right?
It is, yeah. Thailand's Australia's Mexico. That's not an insult. It's just the truth. Dude,
I didn't think it was
It's okay, dude. We can get off topic.
Yeah, it's the
for a
end of
little
the
bit.
stream.
Yeah, it's the end of the stream. Talk a little bit about WW2, a little bit about Australia, Thailand. I'd like to go to Indonesia. Or where we look at where's that girl in the chopper from?
She was from Indonesia.
Indonesia? Yeah, Indonesia looks rad.
Looks beautiful.
Right. It's like it's like Japan's Alabama.
That's quite the analogy.
Right, dude?
Yeah.
All my Indonesian people in the chat get it?
Yeah. But then also,
All none of you.
Australia is like if Alabama was an island.
Indonesia is also an island, though. It's complicated. There's a tier list.
But Indonesia's not like Alabama.
I would like
but
to
it's
go back to the science was so cool. Dude. I remember being it was like that was a big reason to be proud to be an American. Was that we had the best scientists.
You know what I mean? It was a
and it's
different
because
time.
nobody my age experienced World War II or any of the like things about it except for like all the laws that the boomers create, you know.
Well, they just like all the scientist stuff just eventually ended up into bureaucracy and the 80s and I mean, I am a capitalist, but a lot of science ran into capitalism. And just it sucks, man. And just you want to be like, dude, go. I don't know, man.
That's why
Which is
everybody
very
thinks
cool, dude. We
my
used to have very
age
cool science
is
stuff.
softies because we weren't experiencing World War II in the draft.
Some of the scary stuff.
Oh, we were talking about that earlier today. So I think that's we could do a whole live stream on this, but it also is a cool topic to talk about now. I think I'm sure you had somebody in your life at some point who served in Vietnam.
I used to, actually, some of the patients I used to work on
Right.
would come, and I can remember setting up one, because I did physical therapy for a while too, and setting him up on his electrical stim, and you had to be very careful when you came into the room. You couldn't, like, startle him, because he said he was with his group over in Vietnam, and he slept on his stomach, and all of the rest of the guys, someone had come into the camp and had slit their throats. And being he
Thank you,
was
Dave.
on his stomach, he was one of the guys that survived.
I can't imagine. You know, I've been in a couple life and death situations, not one where you had to experience it every day. So Dave's channel, thank you. We appreciate you, brother. From the world's Alabama, Australia.
Dave's channel.
So we were talking about Vietnam today. What a bizarre thing. So
Yeah.
I had two very important men in my life growing up, none of which was my father. Like, you know, and that was my grandfather who raised me, and also my uncle, who was a huge part of my life as well. And my grandfather was a World War II veteran. My uncle was a Vietnam veteran.
I don't know anyone who is in World War II because my dad is Lebanese and my mom is from like really, really rural Canada.
I feel very thankful that my grandfather now, right? I could probably say like, oh, I wish my dad or whatever, but I feel very, very thankful because I got an experience as somebody I'm 41. I got an experience that most people my age never got to get. So I could look back at my childhood and cry that I didn't meet my dad till I was older, and then when I did, whatever. But I got raised by my grandfather, and I got to experience what it was like to be taught how to be a man and taught values by somebody who grew up and made it all the way to the 4th grade. Before he was drafted, and they were like, you're too stupid to do anything but be a Marine, and fought his way through the island to Japan, was in the occupation in Hiroshima after they dropped the bomb. They made a movie about it. You know, he was one of the first boots on the ground in Japan.
That's crazy.
And in the occupation. And then he came back to America and he had to raise my dipshit ass. You know what I mean? Like, it was not a great fucking reward.
I'll go back. No.
Dude, I couldn't imagine having to deal with me
I feel
after
very
having
lucky.
to
I
deal
feel
with
very
that.
lucky. You know, now. At the time, I didn't appreciate it. You know,
Of course.
I was really into like tanks. But also, like,
I'm not there yet.
he
I'm
didn't
not
want
into
to.
tanks
He
yet.
didn't
I'm
want
on
to
the
talk about it.
planes.
So
Planes,
I'll-
trains, and boats. I'm not into tanks
I'll
yet.
think back on it, and I would want to talk because I would want to talk about tanks and stuff and like guns. And I was a kid,
Yeah.
kids like guns and tanks and things that go boom. And he was very moody. Never held a real job for very long. Would lose his temper. Back then they didn't call it PTSD.
Yeah.
That was not a term that exists. They called it being shell shocked. And so Bob was shell shocked, and everybody knew it. Everyone would be like, "Oh, Bob, shell shocked, man. Just don't say the wrong thing," because he could have a job for a while, but then his boss would tell him to do something, and he'd like beat him up. You know what I mean? Like he would just have like problems.
Dude, imagine
you
being
know?
the first boots on the ground, and then you gotta come home, and your boss just tells you to mop the floor better.
So he never had a real job,
Like,
on the government dole, like the whole
imagine
time. But he was
laying
still
on the
fun,
ground. With all your brothers in the army, and you're the only one Marines, and you're the only one who didn't get your throat slit because you were laying on your stomach, and then you come home and someone's like,
And I'm like, "Get me the Godzilla game."
I'd
You know what I
probably
mean?
want to beat someone up too.
Yeah, I got my fucking anyway.
No, when I was working in therapy again, I used to have patients that came through that actually had the tattoos that had been in the Holocaust, and they've been in the camps and everything.
That's wild. I feel like you're so lucky to have met people like that. It's like meeting a living piece of history.
Yeah.
And I know like they lived it, so for them it's not history, it's just their life. But I can only view it.
Stories are crazy.
I can only view it from where I stand. Mm-hmm. So for me, it is history. And as I got older, I really, really appreciate it. I'd like to spend some more time with my Uncle Chuck too. He's a complicated person, as was my grandfather.
Well, in Michigan, like there's the area that I was actually living in Farmington Hills, like Bloomfield Hills area. There was a Knollwood, which was a country club or whatever. It was all Jewish people. No one else was allowed, and so in this area was predominantly Jewish. So I ran into a lot of people that
Holocaust
had their
survivors.
tattoos. Yeah, it was crazy.
Wild, man. I can't imagine.
Their stories are like they're just such tear jerkers. And the one lady, because I had Sammy Muskowitz was the one gentleman that I worked with, and there was another lady. Her name was, I think it was like Tanya, and I can't remember her last name, but she told me that her dad was getting pulled away, and he had like his wallet that they hadn't taken from him, and he was giving it to her, and her trying to hide it to keep it. Like she had written a book, and I have to remember her last name because she wrote a book about trying to hide it so she could hang on to something, and that was the last time she saw him because he ended up dead and she ended up surviving it. But it's just like you hear the stories of, like I said, our history of stuff like that. It's crazy.
Well, it makes me want to do more. It makes me want to do something to change where we live now, because I feel like I'm not trying to be like ridiculous, I originally started this because Shay, and don't judge her, she's learning American history right now, only found out how long the Vietnam War lasts versus World War II. About 4 years versus 14
I found that out today.
But that's okay. You don't have to feel bad about that.
I also
You shouldn't feel like you have to know everything.
I didn't know what happened at Pearl Harbor. That's
too.
What started this was I found out that Pearl Harbor wasn't Japan's 9/11.
I should feel more bad about that because I don't know what people think about me. Would they think that what I think or who I am? But I do have a tattoo of the U.S. Arizona on my chest.
I just thought you were super into boats or something. I don't know.
You were super into boats.
I have the tattoo of the USS Arizona on me. Large. Anyway, I can't imagine what it was like to live through Vietnam and be a small child who didn't know what war or anything was, and then live through the threat of war over your head your entire life and then eventually be drafted into war. So from the early 60s to the mid 70s, what a time to live through that I can't imagine.
No,
I can't imagine what that was like to be a kid in America. And we were talking a lot today. So Han Solo. Love you, bud. Thank you, man. We appreciate you. You can buy a raffle ticket. Thank you so much. We appreciate that. I can't imagine what it was like to live through that. And I also am just like, dude, the separation that caused in America, where, because we were talking about, like, you could have a college deferment, you know, or you could get out of it.
What do you think you'd be doing in World War II? Do you think you'd be like, I'm going to go to college? Or do you think you'd be like, I'm going to be a nurse? Because you're a woman. You don't have many options.
I'd be a nurse.
Or were you like going to go be a factory worker, you think?
I'd probably be a nurse. Well,
I would be like, I'm going to college.
So it's like during Vietnam, you had people who had college opportunities in the coastal cities mostly. You know, this is, I think that this is the division, and I usually don't talk about politics. And I don't want to talk about politics. All I want to talk about is getting us back together to do something good. Yeah. But I think that, what do I think? What do I know? I think that a large division started in America during Vietnam, where it was an unpopular war in America, yet the draft took people from poor, small regions in middle America and thrust them into a foreign place and killed them, while people in wealthier coastal cities who could afford to go to college or find a way to get out of going to war protested against it and didn't like it. And then these people had to come back after serving their country, whether you call that good or bad, it doesn't matter. They still served their country. I don't care what they did. Now they had to come back to them, an elite class, calling them baby killers and
spitting on them. Like, that's one of the things that the patient was telling me.
This is insane division. Yeah. Where you're like, oh, are you poor and uneducated and can't go to college? I guess you have to go to war. Oh, did you grow up in the suburbs of Boston? No, you can stay. You're fine. You're good. It's not a it's just like, but all I can think of is like, there is a reason for us to come together. I don't care where you came from, what you think, what your political leanings are. There's a reason that we can come together, and it's for Forgotten Angels, man. We can all agree that people deserve a chance. They deserve a chance no matter where they come from. I don't care if they come from a rich family, because there's plenty of young men and women who come from families with money who can have a very bad time. Just because your family has money and your family has the ability, in fact, in some cases, it's worse because they have the ability to hide it. But they so happen, I'm sure there's plenty that come from nice neighborhoods.
Well, I had one of my at-risk boys. It turned out to be one of my biggest knotaheads, and I will tell you, his dad was a Marine. And he ended up being one of my worst nightmares.
Yeah, man. It's everyone from everything and in between. Yeah. And I think that we can all kind of get behind that. We can all kind of help. I don't care how divided you are or who you don't like or do like. Yeah. You can, if you really don't like a lot of people, maybe you can help some people younger than you do better.
Well, no, I tell everybody, either you start working with the kids now or you're going to run from them later.
That's for damn sure.
And that's facts. It is facts. If you don't start working with them, because they're either going to end up in jail. And the main thing that I've always tried to impress upon some of the kids that are out on the property, because some of them come with records, they're coming from the detention center, and they've had sticky fingers, and I'll say they'll have someone do something very kind for them, and I'll say, you know what, the next time you think that maybe you want to take somebody's stuff that's not yours, remember you could be taking it from them. The same person that extended you whatever, like a gift card, or they brought you something, or whatever, but they were kind to you. Remember, that might be the person you're hurting. Like, to turn it around, so their way of thinking is understanding that people that are helping me, I may be hurting them, which before they didn't care.
expanding the circle of compassion
Yeah,
is, I think,
exactly.
the
It's
most
like
important
if you
thing.
have to teach someone to tie their shoes, do you really think they know values and empathy?
You have to teach
They're
them.
in survival mode.
Yeah.
Like, you have to really teach them all of those things.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
I was a lizard for most of my life.
Yeah, and on that note, I would like to go basking to my rock. So thank you to everyone who served so I can do that.
Love you guys. We're gonna hang out. My man Loose Juice just shared the raffle. Grab a ticket only if you can afford it.
See you
If
guys
cannot,
tomorrow.
Please don't do that. And tomorrow we're picking a winner. Somebody's winning the Blackbird.
Thanks, guys.
All right. Bye.
Good night.
Farewell. Auf Wiedersehen. Au revoir.